Welcome to this video where I am building a 20-foot catamaran in my garage, and in this video we're going to get to more of the stringers, and specifically we're going to get to the top stringer, the top cabin stringer, and we won't complete it all the way, but for the top cabin stringers I'm using these smaller strips of southern yellow pine, cut mostly into a square about 3/4 of an inch. And yeah, I'm going to show you the progress so far and more work on the stringers. So alright, let's get to it. For the really long stringers that need to be scarfed together, I've been just gluing a couple of them at a time along the build platform. There's plenty of room. I've got a good 20 feet here to glue these. But for the smaller stringers, I decided to try to glue these together, kind of together as a group. So I put some spacers between them, clamped them together, and they're not glued yet, so they're just kind of sitting here for right now. And the idea is I want some space because there might be some squeeze out, and having some space will let me cut these apart later if I need to. But one of the problems is, even though I've tried to align these as best I can, there's a bit of misalignment on these, and I've been trying to figure out how to align those. And what I came up with was a box of very small wire brad nails. These are number 18 by 1 inch long. And I think what I'll do is, after spreading some epoxy, I will put a little nail in here to hold each of these in place. And because the glue joints are like here and then over here and then here and then here, you know, up here, the glue joints are all over the place, and then back down here. It makes it difficult to clamp it in one place, and I don't want these spacers right next to the glue because I don't want to glue these spacers in. So I'm trying to keep these spacers away from the glue joints, and then that lets them kind of wander a bit here. So I think the nails will help to hold that in place. The nails worked out really well, and I put these boards that I was using before to clamp on the planking to the hull bottoms, and it already has tape on them so they won't stick to anything. So if I move these out of the way, you can see the nails. I let them stick up. All I really needed to do was put them in enough to be able to hold this in place. They worked out really well. There's only one of them that caused a little bit of a crack, and I filled that in with epoxy already. And they should just come right up. If not, I can use the soldering iron to heat them up a bit, and that will slightly melt the epoxy around them and release them. But I'm going to try to pull them out now and see how they come out. The nails all came out really good and easy. The only nail that had a little bit of epoxy on it was the one where it was a little bit of a crack, and as I was spreading epoxy around it, then a little bit got on the nail here, but that's okay. I'll just throw this nail away. I don't even bother to try to clean it up. But yeah, so these stringers are all ready. I'll take them, separate them, sand them up a little bit, and they'll be ready, and they will end up going here on the top section along here. So they're going to go from the bow of the boat all the way along the top of the cabin, and like that. So they'll come along here, so they'll form part of the top of the cabin. The little stringers have all been sanded and they are ready, but I might have gotten a little bit ahead of myself here because I can't really put these on yet, and here's why. So let me show you a little bit here of this stringer. So I started putting, this is just being dry fit for right now, so I'm putting this stringer on, and then I'm going to put one more on top of this. And these notches are really helping, by the way, to hold this in place until I can get it fit properly. But here's what I need to do up here at the very front is make sure that this will come down like this, and I'm going to have to cut this off probably at an angle like this, because I want this to sit not right here, but I want it to sit lower, because the one that's going to go on top of it, I want to come flush with this edge. So these two stringers have to be adjusted. This one and the one on top will have to be adjusted and cut to the right angle and the length to be able to fit down here. And the same thing for the little stringers is that they will be meeting up with this point, just like those stringers. But I need the top stringers to come in from here before I can put in the little stringers here on the top edge. So this side edge of stringers needs to come up here to this point of bulkhead 1, and then over to this point on bulkhead 2. They're not going to continue past bulkhead 2 because this is going to be the cabin area. But these short stringers from here to the front need to be put in before I can put these little thin stringers along here. So a few things that have to be done in the right order, and so for right now I will just maybe set those little stringers off to the side until it's time to use them, and I'm going to concentrate right now on getting these two stringers in place. And the way I did this, I'm probably just causing myself a lot more work, because this board that goes on top here needs to be angled down, and the angle changes along the length of the board. So down here it's mostly a flat angle. It starts becoming a little bit steeper as we go along here. This is probably the steepest angle right here. So I can't just take one of these long stringers outside with my table saw and just cut a angle all along the length of it and put it in place, because it changes. I probably should not have sunk it down here. I probably should have made this so that it actually sticks out above this, and then I could come along with a planer and get everything to the right angle. My original thinking for doing it this way was I wanted the whole planking to be able to sit on this edge of the whole bottom. I thought that would provide greater strength if it actually had an edge to sit on, because this whole side will come up here to about this point here, and this is where the bridge deck will sit on it. So I was thinking, okay, the bridge deck will sit on all of this planking, which will sit on the whole bottom, and I thought that would be the strongest way to go about doing it. But it's causing a lot of extra work to get that angle in there, and I still haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do it yet. Both of the additional hull bottom stringers are now cut and fit into place. There's no epoxy yet, they're still just clamped into place, dry fitting, and this will leave enough room in that little gap there for the hull side to go on, so that there will be some additional planking to go on there. And here's another view around the cabin area of the additional hull bottom stringers. To get the angle in the stringer that we need for the hull planking, I decided to just clamp it in place with no epoxy for now, and use a chisel to make multiple passes to remove some of the wood at an angle. And it'll probably take several passes to get it all down, but this should allow the angle to be adjusted down the length of the hull. Well, it took a couple hours, but in the end I got the top edge of the stringer beveled all the way down using the chisel. It's all the way down there. I'll show you a close-up here of the beveled edge. You can see that kind of bevels down. The main thing is we've got this gap here for the planking to fit in there. The bottom hull stringer is epoxied in place, and I think this might be the most clamps that I've used so far on this boat project. Almost every single one of my clamps, and I just recently got some more clamps, so glad I got extra clamps. It seems you really can never have enough clamps. For the stringers that meet up here at bulkhead 2, the last thing I want is to have a sharp angle. And what I mean by that is I don't want the stringers here at the bridge deck to be going straight out like this, and the stringers here at the top of the hull section to be coming up like this. So I don't want a sharp angle here at this point. So one of the things I'm going to do to help prevent this is I'm going to take these stringers, that the bridge deck stringers that only need to go to bulkhead 2, I'm going to extend those to the very front of the boat to help pull this down and to give a nice bend here at bulkhead 2. And then for the stringers here at the top of the hull section, I'm going with extra thin stringers that I'm going to build up in 3 layers, and that will give a nice bend. I'm going to make it a little bit long sticking out here so that as the epoxy is curing, I can kind of hold this down and make sure that the exit of this stringer coming out here matches the angle of exit of the bridge deck stringer. So I think that will help. The other thing is the bridge deck stringers, I'm going to make them sit flat or parallel with the hull side down here, and I will plane them off at an angle. But these stringers up here, because they're extra thin, I think they'll be able to twist. So I'm going to make them match the angle coming out like this and just twist them so as they go to the front, they'll kind of straighten up, and as when they come back here, they'll be twisted this way. So they're going to match this angle. So 2 different strategies, but the main goal is to make sure that both of them have approximately the same flat, or I guess the angle should be agreeable between the two is kind of what I'm going for here. One of the consequences of bringing the bridge deck stringers all the way to the front is I need this extra support wood to be able to attach them to, just like the stringers here had wood underneath them to attach to. I'll need something to attach to here. Now this will need to be built up a little bit more once the stringers are in place, because the planking actually needs to sit a little bit higher than this board. So, you know, even once I've got the stringers in place here, I'll still need to build this up a little bit for the planking to go on. So I cut notches in the bulkheads, and here is the bridge deck stringer being dry fit into place. I have some sandbags to hold it in place. And you can see that we have a nice curve, a nice gentle curve here in the cabin area. The only really complicated cut for this bridge deck stringer is here at the front, where it needs to meet up with this support wood here. And we have the 2 stringers here, and there needs to be a notch cut out of the top one, and the bottom one is at an angle, so that when it comes down, then it can sit on there just like that. So that's where it will be epoxied into place. The bridge deck stringer is epoxied in place, and I only needed 2 sandbags, one here at bulkhead 6 and one at bulkhead 4, and then a clamp at the very front to hold it down right here to get the bend. And all of these other clamps along the stringer are just to hold the 2 stringers together while the epoxy dries. So now that this is in place, I'm going to start working on these twisted stringers here, the short twisted stringers at the top of the inside hull section. The upper hull deck stringer is now epoxied in place and just waiting for it to cure. I expect some of the curve, to lose some of the curve when I take the clamps off, but cutting this stringer into 6 pieces I think will really help to maintain its shape. There are 3 layers of thin pieces and then 2 side by side, so a total of 6 pieces. You can see that at the end here. There's the 6 pieces here in this clamp, and yeah, so I think that will work quite well. And these, the reason I think I'll lose some of the curve is because there's nothing really holding this down. I've got the clamps here to pull it down, but when these clamps are released, some of the pressure will probably come back up and the board will want to flex back into its original shape. But overall, this should work, and then this will give the surface up here at the front to be able to mount the deck top stringers, which will come here to the ends of the bulkheads there and there. So, but I couldn't put those in until I had this point completed up here. After curing and removing the clamps, this stringer has held its curve quite well. So I'm very happy with this. It's quite firm. There's no real like tension in it to go back to being straight that I can tell. I think the dividing this up like this really helped. I read somewhere that if you want to bend a board and get it to keep its shape, that you need at least 3 layers laminated together. So here we're bending and we're putting a slight twist, so that's why I cut it this way as well. So we've got 3 layers going this way, and then we've got it cut this way to be able to get the twist. And it seems to have worked quite well. I cut the notches out of the tops of these bulkheads. This is bulkhead number 1, so it gets notches here and here. These will form the top deck stringers. And for bulkheads 2 and 4, this notch again comes out of the corner, but for this notch I made it here because I'm going to pretend that this bulkhead comes down at an angle like this instead of straight across. So that's when it comes time to putting the support wood in here, I'm going to put it here at the angle also. And this one will stick out like this because there will be another piece of wood coming along here that'll form the inside of the cabin. For the top deck stringers, I'm making them out of 4 square pieces of strips, and I had wanted to put all 4 of them on at the same time, and I'm test fitting to see how well it fits. So I've got them clamped on here for right now just to dry fit it, and then I've clamped it again on at bulkhead 2, and this is a very steep bend, or very sharp bend, that has to go in this board. Not so I guess sharp that it would come close to breaking the board or anything, but it's really putting a lot of pressure to get all 4 of these at the same time. So instead, I'm only going to do 2 at a time. So that's why now I only have 2 of them clamped on here, and the other 2 are just sitting here. These 2 are just sitting here loose, because trying to bend all 4 was putting a lot of pressure on these bulkheads, and even the clamping pressure needed at the front here was quite significant. So I think by doing 2 at a time, that'll reduce a lot of the pressure. So it turns out that even doing 2 at a time was a bit too much, because what I found when I was trying to mark this edge and cut it so it would come up flush with these stringers here was that I don't have a very good clamping angle. And in fact, I had to use other clamps just in order to give this red clamp here something to grip onto so it wouldn't slip. And the C clamp that I have here at the front just kept slipping quite a bit. So that turned out to be quite a bit. So I'm just doing 1, and in fact I only epoxied it right here. So the bulkheads are still dry fit, and the reason for that is I want to make sure that these bulkheads are straight. So I don't want them to be bending, you know, maybe too far forward or bending back or anything like that. They need to be perfectly straight. So by clamping and gluing just the front point for one of the boards and waiting for that to cure, that will then allow me to focus next on each of these bulkhead points and get them epoxied in, and making sure that the bulkheads are straight without worrying about this joint up here slipping, because this has now been cured. I clamped a board to the bottom of the bulkheads just to keep them straight. So I want the bulkheads to come straight out like this. So I clamped that board down there to hold it straight. And then just tacked on with a little bit of epoxy this 1 stringer onto the corner of the bulkheads. And I had wanted to then move on to the other 3 pieces, but the weather has just not been cooperating very well these last few days. It's been getting a little bit cool at night, and well, I'm running out of the fast hardener, and for something like this, for a long stringer like this anyway, I probably want to use the slow hardener, and it's regularly getting below 60 degrees Fahrenheit each night, and so I can't really count on it setting up properly. So for the last few days, not much has happened here, just waiting for the temperature to come back up. And I think I'm going to go ahead and get this video posted so that you can see the current progress, and hopefully the temperature will come back up soon and I'll be able to make more progress with the epoxy. So that will be all for now. All right, bye.